Good morning and welcome to our WREA Wisconsin Wednesdays. My name is John Green with Association Member Benefits Advisors. We're joined today by our Executive Director of WREA, Diane, along with staff Annalise, Lori, and our co-host MJ Woodall. So thank you for joining us today. Just a couple of quick housekeeping details before we jump on off in our conversation today. All participants are in a listen-only mode. And what that means is that if you have a question, you want to make a comment, please feel free to do so in chat or in the Q&A feature. At the end of our conversation today, we'll stop the recording. And for those of you who don't feel comfortable about typing it in, anything like that, you can simply just hold up your hand on the reaction bar and we can answer your question live during our conversation, but we'll stop the recording at that point. We do record all of these sessions and put them out on the WREA website, wrea.net. That way you can follow up and look at it at your leisure, look at it with your family members, and just have a discussion that way, or even share it with a potential WREA member and show them what they can learn as part of their WREA membership. You'll notice this QR code down here at the bottom right-hand corner. You're going to see this at the end of the conversation as well. It is simply the best way to get information on some of the topics that we talk about today. You can take your smartphone, hover over that QR code, open up your camera feature. Don't take a picture of it, but just simply hover over it, and a little form will pop up, hit that button, and then you can check off some things you want to talk about. So let's go ahead and jump on off in here today. And we were talking about heat and stuff like that. So Diane, kind of tell us what's hot up in Wisconsin today.
Well, right now, we've lots of different things going on that we're preparing for. I want to kind of move forward and then come backwards, but our fall convention is going to be September 27th and 28th at the Ingleside Hotel in Pewaukee, Waukesha County. And we have lined up some really good breakout sessions and speakers. And we hope that, people will consider coming. We are currently putting together all of the last details. And if you're a member, you will be getting our edition of the WREA News in early July. It will have all of the information you need to register and make hotel reservations, etc., at the hotel. So we hope you consider joining us. It's going to be a great time. It's actually our second event that will be in person. So people will get to see one another once again, and we would like to see you there. We also want you to go to the website, as John said, www.wrea.net, and click on the events tab at the top, and you can see all of the activities that we host. The one that we do monthly is my fireside chat. That's the second Thursday of every month from 10 to 11. And I feature a guest host every time. So we hope you'll join us with that and learn a lot of different variety of activities that and topics that we talk about, basically all related around the age group of our members who are retired, mostly educators, but we also have others also. One of the other things that has just come up and that I know that John probably will touch on is the news out of the WEA Trust that they will be ending their health insurance part as of the end of December. So information has gone out to our members and prospective members of how we can help through AMBA, our member benefit partner, to help you with that if you do need assistance with health insurance. So watch for the emails, the social media, and contact AMBA if you are in need of that. So we hope you'll stay involved. If you're a member, if you're not a member, please consider joining. We obviously protect the pension. We're #1 in the country. And with your support and your voice, we can make sure we stay that way. So again, thank you for being here. And John, back to you.
Appreciate it, Diane. There is so much going on, and we are in process of preparing several different webinars throughout the summer and going into the fall to talk about different options based on some of the actions that are taking place in the state. Real quickly, my name is John Green. I work with Association Member Benefits Advisors. I live a little bit north of Houston with my wife, who is an elementary school teacher. She's teaching summer school right now. I've got 3 adult children in all different phases of life, but I've spent the better part of my career helping active educators understand what their retirement benefits are going to look like. So I appreciate the opportunity to share with you today and talk about some of the experiences that I've experienced over the past 3 decades of helping teachers and retired teachers as well. And my co-host today is MJ Woodall. She is our leader up in the Wisconsin area. And so MJ, you want to introduce yourself real quickly?
Good morning, everyone. As John said, I'm MJ Woodall. I reside in Menominee Falls, and I have been with the company about 6.5 years, being able to help all of you members and potential members, which has been just absolutely wonderful. This is a picture of my husband and I. We went to the Stars and Stripes Honor Flight Inaugural Ball last year in the fall, which was absolutely wonderful to be able to give back to the men and women who have done so much for all of us over the years. So it's actually helping to raise funds so that they can take those honor flights, which is really pretty cool. I have two adult children who actually I get to work alongside, and they probably have helped some of you over their time here as well. And I have a 2-year-old puppy by the name of Bucky, who keeps us really, really busy. And as you can see, those are some of the hobbies that we have. But I'm going to turn it back over to John because I know we've got a lot to cover today.
Thanks, MJ. I appreciate that. Just real quickly, Diane mentioned it, and the more I get a chance to research pension plans all across the country, Wisconsin really does have a phenomenal pension plan, and it's in large part because of the efforts that WREA and their members have put into advocacy and supporting those candidates that really back behind your pension. So that's a huge impact for you as retirees. For those of you who may be just kind of tasting WREA, hadn't become a member yet, this is another big reason that the WREA is your pension watchdog, looking out for you, helping to preserve benefits, finding ways to connect you to your local community. We're back in person again through some of these events, local chapter meetings, things like that, and then partnering up with us at AMBA to get you those discounts and benefits and things that maybe you left when you left the schoolhouse, or maybe you need for your family members or your parents and things like that as well. And some of the advantages of having us together with WREA are the ability to have all these benefits with your family as well. We're going to talk about home health care and talk about some of the different things. Before we do that, I love infographics, and I love the ability to there's nothing that's more enjoyable to me than to plan out summer plan travel and to see maps. My wife is a second grade elementary school teacher, and she says her kids haven't even seen a map. A lot of these second graders have never seen a map before, and she'll bring these in, and she's almost like, she feels like a pirate bringing this pirate treasure map, and kids go over it. So I found some infographics that kind of help explain a little bit why I think Wisconsin's in a pretty good shape. Although I do question your snack choice. Your favorite snack choice in Wisconsin is at Sour Patch Kids, which I didn't realize that. But I think that as you kind of see some of this build here, you'll understand why Wisconsin maybe lives longer than others here. You have a big love, of course, for your Brewers, big fans of the Brewers. Conversely, you hate the Bears. Is that correct? Not big fans of the Bears. Okay. So in Texas, we don't like the Eagles, mostly because Cowboy fans don't like the Eagles. Down here in Houston, we're Texan fans. We don't really hate anybody. We just don't play very well. So you dislike that. One thing that I thought was very impressive is y'all are probably the second best or biggest consumer of beer in the country. And I think this leads outside the Dakotas. And I think this is why, when you sum it all up, the Sour Patch Kids, the love of the Brewers, the hatred of the Bears, and the amount of beer consumed is why you're one of the highest and longest living life expectancy states in the country. So keep it up in Wisconsin. We're going to talk about this long life concept. We're going to talk about these things in regards to long-term care. We're going to take a little bit of a look back at what we talked about a couple of weeks ago on the basics of long-term care. We're going to talk about kind of where people are today, because many of you may have taken out a policy several years ago through your place of employment, through a different association, through maybe possibly your spouse's place of employment, things like that, and kind of show you where we are today, uncover some myths, uncover some numbers, because some of these things, as I showed you on those little maps in a fun way, the numbers do tell us a lot and can kind of help you prepare for your future as we go through there. But before we do that, help MJ and I out by answering a quick poll. And I want to see who on our call today. We're going to launch this poll. It's totally anonymous, and make sure that you've got an answer here that we can kind of address it. If you're prepared, if you've got a long-term care plan or not, answer that real quickly, and we'll publish that result here in just a moment. While you're doing that, Annalise corrected my geography, and I appreciate that. I pride myself on being the best at Pictionary in drawing states, but I didn't pick out the difference between Michigan and Wisconsin, and I apologize. Where Twix is your favorite, Sour Patch Kids, I was wondering what Sour Patch Kids, because nobody likes Sour Patch Kids. So, except Oklahoma, which that explains a lot. So, all right, we're just about wrapping this up here. Let's go ahead and end this poll and publish the results. We've got a really good split, 50-50 almost, of people who have taken advantage of and taken care of their long-term care planning. And this session is great for you because we're going to really drill down into kind of where people find themselves with long-term care situations if they already have a plan right now. And then for those that don't, we're going to catch you up real quickly and roll through this. So again, thank you very much for sharing your information with your poll. This is the reason why I have this conversation. Both MJ and I have had impacts of long-term care needs by both of our parents. This is a photo of my father and I back in July of 2020, right before he turned 80. This was the last time that he remembered who I was. He was in a long-term care facility in Austin for about 2 years with complications due to vascular dementia. And what I learned in that process of his 2 years in long-term care is why I'm passionate about this subject today. We were blessed that he had the foresight back in his early 60s to take out a long-term care plan. And because he did that, it impacted our family over many, many generations. So he passed away in October later that year, but I'll kind of weave that conversation in here. And then MJ has some conversation she wants to share with you about a current WREA member and how long-term care impacted her family and herself as well. So it's part of that conversation today. So I want to take you back and show you just a little bit of historical look at long-term care, because close to 60% of the people on our call today have purchased a long-term care plan of some sort in their past, okay? And starting in 1990 or so, you had many companies offering individual long-term care plans and many companies offering group long-term care plans where you could purchase it through the school, through payroll deduct, through a private employer, that type of thing. And throughout the 90s into the early 2000s, you had a significant rise in the number of people purchasing plans, mostly because it was made available to them in an easy format. Also because they saw their parents or they saw their grandparents go through particular issues and how it impacted their family. Well, 2000 rolls along and insurance companies started realizing that people were going on claim, or they were claiming their long-term care plans. They were living longer in nursing home facilities or living longer in care. The rise in Alzheimer's started becoming very prevalent. So costs started going up through the roof. And so they started raising their premiums, they started tightening underwriting guidelines, and a lot of times they got out of the business altogether. And so you got down to where very, very few people purchased a true traditional long-term care plan, and that really had a major impact on what's available out there. But what didn't change is the need for it. So kind of here's where we find ourselves today, good news and bad news. The good news is advances in diagnosis and treatment are causing life expectancies to go up. And I guess in the case of folks in Wisconsin, the more beer consumption, the longer the lifespan. You know, those things combined make for life expectancies going up. And that's good news. We're living longer. Variety of care options are increasing. Back when my grandparents were around back in the 80s, it was nursing home or stay at home. There was nothing really in between. So you've got a lot of variety of care that's out there. On the other side, an aging population does increase the need, and therefore the costs start to go up. And I think about my grandparents again. All four of my grandparents were one of 6 to 10 kids on their side, on each one of their sides of the family. So when they had to take care of somebody, there was a larger care pool, so to speak. Now today we have smaller number of family members. We have 2, 3 kids. So you have a much smaller care pool. And then policies start to get restrictive in their language. Medicare made significant changes in what they will cover in any type of recovery situation. And then all of a sudden, policies started going up in premiums. People started taking out larger elimination periods. We're going to talk about that in just a moment, which really causes more out-of-pocket expense. And then all of a sudden, this thing called COVID-19 pops in there. And with my father's situation, he was in the nursing home right in the peak of COVID. And what I've discovered was that many of the nursing facilities share staff members. And those staff members, especially some of the therapists and things like that, they rotate around different facilities. Well, during COVID and even subsequent to COVID, they can no longer share staff members. So that caused an acute need for staff. Costs went up, things like that, different requirements for semi-private rooms, things of that nature. So COVID-19 really has had an impact on the cost of long-term care and the availability of it as well. But what didn't change, as we've talked about all along, is that over 70% of people were going to need some sort of care once they reach age 65 or beyond. And that care could be for life, just like my father, the last 2 years of his life. It could be the result of a fall, result of a surgery, knee replacement, hip replacement, things like that. There's going to be some need for 70% of us once we reach the age of 65. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The cost of care in Wisconsin, just like inflation and everything, is going up significantly. This is a quick snapshot across the state, major metropolitan areas, college towns, and more north, just to kind of look at what the cost of a home health aide, of someone to come out to your house 2 or 3 times a week, or 40 hours a week, depending on if you need somebody to stay with them all the time, what that cost is looking like. An assisted living facility where you have your own unit within a bigger complex, a nursing home, semi-private or private room. And in Texas, it's about $6,000 a month for a semi-private room. MJ and I were talking beforehand, it's $10,000 plus in a lot of areas in Wisconsin. So it's pretty expensive up there for long-term care. So you just kind of have those numbers in the back of your mind, because as we walk through some of this conversation today, I want you to be prepared, especially for those of you who have a plan already. And I want you to compare yourselves to some of these numbers you've seen here. So we walk through kind of the traditional components of a long-term care plan, like a good hamburger. A good hamburger, you got your buns, those are your qualifications, meaning that if once you have a long-term care plan, and for those 57% of you who do, you can start to trigger your benefits when you lose usually 2 to 3 of your activities of daily living, bathing, toileting, being able to transfer, feeding yourself, stuff like that, or you have a cognitive impairment like Alzheimer's or dementia. That triggers then the daily benefit amount or the pool of money to be used towards your benefits. Some of you may have a length of coverage that says you've got coverage for 3 years, 5 years, lifetime, or for that pool of money. Many of you have an elimination period. And I really want to hit on that elimination period. And I'm going to hit on it in just a moment, have MJ come in and share her thoughts on it. The elimination period is the amount of money that you'll have to pay out of your pocket before your coverage kicks in. So it's kind of like a deductible on your homeowner's insurance or your car insurance. And this number can really get to be sizable before you have any benefits that kick in. Then we talk about location of coverage, whether you're cared for at home, assisted living, or in a nursing facility. If you have inflation protection, for those of you, like you saw the numbers just a few seconds ago, if you took out a policy many years ago, you want to check and see if that inflation protection is kept up with the cost in Wisconsin. And then non-skilled services, that's a biggie. And I'll show you some reasons why on that in just a moment there. So here's where people find themselves now. And for the 57% of you who said you do have a long-term plan care already, I want you to think about this. You may be seeing sizable rate increases on policies that you already have. And some carriers are coming out and saying, all right, we're stopping all coverage, meaning they're not going to write any new coverage. And if you have a plan, we will tell you that you can levelize your premium, but you're going to take a reduced coverage amount. And so you've got a situation to where you're trying to determine, do I keep paying the increasing premium, or do I take some coverage and level out my premiums so they fit with my income, that type of thing like that? Are you finding that that coverage doesn't match what your current need is or what the cost is in Wisconsin right now? Some of the old plans, especially some of the old group plans that you may have purchased through your school or your spouse through a private employer or something like that, some of them are pretty restrictive on home care especially, meaning that you may only have a reduced amount of coverage for home care or there's no coverage for home care. So you may not have that control. But the biggest thing that we're seeing right now is that elimination period. What most group plans had a set elimination period of 90 or 180 days, which 10, 15 years ago may have been $8,000, $9,000. MJ, share with us the story you had on a client that, or a WREA member whose husband had to go into a nursing home and how much that cost him, not knowing what he had.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. So her husband did have a plan through his employer, and unfortunately he needed to go in and have care. And she had to come up, and I just got off the phone with her right before this call to make sure she was comfortable with me sharing everything, which she absolutely would have been on the call herself, but I'll explain why later, why she's not. But she literally had to come up with her family with $10,000 up front just to basically enter him into that facility. And they had a 90-day elimination period, which they probably were told that, she even says, we were probably told that when we bought it, but we didn't think about it. And they didn't realize that that meant that the first 90 days were paying out of their pocket. So not only did she have to come up with 10,000, but she had to come up with the other 20,000. So a total of 30 over the course of that 90-day period before their current plan picked up. And then the other thing that she had shared, and this is not uncommon, and it's not a bad thing, it's just how the plan works. You're not going to get that money from that plan right away. You have to basically get reimbursed for that. So she was using, I think she used the terms, I was using April's money to pay, or excuse me, I was using, April's money to pay May premium, because she had to take the money that she finally got to cover 1 month to pay the next one. So I definitely encourage, if you have a plan, whether it was with us or another provider, whether it was through the school or whether it was through, a spouse's employment, what have you, check those plans. Typically on page 3, 4, or 5, but usually page 3 of that plan, you will be able to see the listing of what that level of care is per day and what that elimination period is. John, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, and we're going to hear the rest of that story in just a moment. Again, all important as to why you want to review your policies, review your coverages. I applaud you, just like my father, when he took out his plan back in his early 60s, he was healthy, always playing church basketball. He was an all-state basketball, football, and track runner, healthy as a horse, never anticipated any of what he went through. And I'm so appreciative that he did that. But periodic checking can be very important. So grab a pen and paper here real quick. Here's why I want to show you some numbers, just like those infographics I showed you beforehand. This can help you understand what the current realities are in long-term care and what you may or may not need to cover. 28 months is the average time that someone spends in an assisted living facility. And an assisted living facility is kind of that in-between stage of your home and a nursing home. And it's where you can still care for yourself, but you may need somebody to come and do some light housekeeping, maybe administer some medication. Just watch out for you if something happens. Almost 60% of people who go into an assisted living facility ultimately end up in a skilled nursing care facility or a nursing home, what we would call a nursing home. So 60% transition into a nursing home. The average stay in a nursing home for a man is 8 months, 2.5 years for a woman, 2.2 years on average for overall. But for Alzheimer's patients, it's 9 years. So if you've got a family history of Alzheimer's, you may want to consider planning longer than the average stay. My father was just short of 2 years, but there were many people that were in his nursing home facility that I got to know that had been there 4, 5, 6 years or longer, especially those that were healthy and had Alzheimer's in that regards. But the one stat that just blew me away, that really jumps out to me here, is that 47% of nursing home stays or residents stay less than 100 days. That's not because they pass away. That's because the Medicare money runs out and they have to be moved back home, and someone usually has to quit their job to take care of them. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, show you the financial impact that could have on your family. And from my father's perspective, because he did have coverage, good coverage, it allowed my stepmother to continue to work, and it allowed him to be cared for in a very good manner. And so that's really what you want, is control over how you're taken care of, where you're taken care of, and how long you're taken care of. So there are some other options that are out there, and MJ touched on those just a little bit. There are options that can give you control over your length of coverage. It doesn't have to be a 10-year period. It doesn't have to be this long, expensive time period frame out there. You can match your benefit that you want to receive to compare it to Social Security versus your pension plan, things like that. That elimination period is so crucial. As MJ mentioned, oftentimes you took out a plan through your employer. It was a cookie cutter plan. Again, not a bad plan in any way, shape, or form. I applaud you for taking those steps, but you just don't think what 90 days is. 90 days is, that's 3 months, no big deal. when it's 3 months at 10,000 a month and you still have to take care of your household, that 30,000, as MJ talked about, coming, out of your pocket before you're reimbursed too later on, those things are important there. So there's ways that you can take care of those. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Location of coverage and non-skilled care. So we're going to break down each one of these check marks and show you what your options are and show you why it's important to review if you have coverage, or if you don't have coverage, to understand what could be out there for you based on some of those numbers I just showed you of the average stay being X number of months or years for depending upon male or female. All right, so let's look at options in terms of length of coverage and daily benefit amount. You can get weekly options that pay you up to $1,200 a week. So if you have a less expensive place, or you need to get more coverage, if you've already got a plan, you can do some that supplements you a little bit faster. Some of these benefits are paid to you regardless of any other coverage that you have, meaning you don't have to worry about coordination of care. If Medicare pays for anything, doesn't matter. You're getting that money to you regardless of that. You can get time periods as short as 13 weeks. So you can cover that small time frame, but could be expensive in your elimination period, or you can get it up to a year, which could allow your long-term care coverage to start to kick in addition to that year, or keep you at home for a year. Some have recurring benefits, meaning that if you have, say, a care need for a 3-month period due to a fall or something like that, then you could jump up and after a year, your benefits restored. So it's really kind of a neat way to take care of those particular situations there. So you take care of those two things. And then you have a large elimination period. And MJ talked about this in regards to her WREA member whose spouse had to go into a nursing home plan. You can select plans that have a 0-day waiting period, which means the minute that your doctor certifies that you are needing coverage, it goes back. It starts to pay immediately upon that point. You can get some that are 20 days, 100 days, depending on what you want to do. But as MJ talked about, and I've seen this historically with clients that I've dealt with, the first dollar is always the hardest dollar to come up with. You can, if you had a year's advance notice, figure out how to structure your finances. But when you need that coverage right away, finding that first dollar and not having to tap any savings or any IRAs and take penalties and things like that, you can't call up the pension board and say, hey, double out my pension because I need to go into a nursing home, that type of thing. Finding that dollar, that first dollar, is so important. We've got plans that can just give you short periods of coverage and to take care of that elimination period. And then what if you don't want to go to a nursing home? My father, we kept him at home as long as possible until my stepmother could no longer take care of him and he needed more skilled care. There are plans that can keep you at home. Maybe they can keep you at home for a year and have skilled or non-skilled care that comes out to the house. And then after that point, then move into some type of continuing care or nursing home facility out there as well. Again, it gives you total control. Some of these plans are lump sum, meaning that you can just have the whole amount given to you at one time. You can decide how you want to be taken care of. If you want to have someone like a home health aide come out, if you want to have just somebody from your church move in with you just to watch out over you and be able to pay for them a little bit, a son or a daughter or grandson, granddaughter, it has to quit their work, that type of thing. And then some of these plans have extra cash. If you do fall, have to go to an emergency room, they give you additional cash on top of that. MJ, you kind of want to tell the rest of the story that you had with your client that had the spouse that had to go into long-term care. What happened to her?
Yes. So I want to clarify, because when I say the one word that I'm going to say, you're going to think it's the same story that I shared in the past. The story I shared in the past was about a lady who fell down at church and went into a nursing home. The rest of the story from what I was sharing earlier was the husband had to go into a facility and everything, went in, and that was back in either 2017 or 2018. And I was actually helping her, even though we didn't work with her or him on that plan. I still am here to help, and so is my team, help you with whatever plans you have. We can review those and help with those. I actually helped her get reimbursed from that company just to make sure everything was set. Fast forward, she wanted to make sure she didn't have any type of issue should she need to go in, because she's like, I can't come up with another $30,000. And again, that was about 4 or 5 years ago. So that cost she was concerned would be higher. Believe it or not, unfortunately, on June 2nd, this is a different lady from the other story, was at her church. She was actually getting communion set up so that it was ready for the services that night and into the next day, on June 2nd, I should say. And she went to take care of that. She was walking down, she slipped and she fell. She injured her head, hit her head hard. She broke something. She said she could hear the crunch, and she actually broke her elbow. She had surgery last week, Friday, and she was in contact with me right away to let me know what had happened, and then filled me in on how the surgery went. And we just got off the phone earlier this morning where she wanted me to share with everybody her story. So back in May of 2019, I worked with her on a home care plan because she wanted to make sure that she had some services should anything ever happen to her. Little did she know that in 2022, almost literally 3 years later, that something would happen, that she would need this care. She knows that she's going to have somebody coming in to do physical therapy, somebody else coming in to do occupational therapy, and somebody else coming in just to do basic home services like maybe bathing or administering different meds or what have you. That period of time is being determined right now, and I'm in the process of working with her to make sure that she's got everything set, and then we're going to work to get her claim filed. So you just never know when you're going to need this, but she is grateful that she has this. She told me she fell down one step, hit her head, broke her arm, which was by the elbow. And she had a 3.5-hour surgery, and they did all kinds of work for her on that. But thankfully, she is going to get the care that she needs. And she will be putting together a testimonial letter on all of that as well, too, that we can share in the future. So I'm grateful that I was able to help her back when it was everything going on with her husband. I'm grateful that I was able to help her work on something that was going to give her peace of mind. And I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to help her now, because unfortunately she does need it.
Absolutely.
So.
Thank you, MJ. Thank you for sharing that. Again, it shows the importance of reviewing what you may have, but knowing that you have options for smaller things as well, so that you don't have that money out of pocket and you get the care that you need, and you don't have to scrimp on that type of care as well. So you do have some different options that way as well. And this is why we have this conversation. As I showed you that number before, of the number of people who leave a nursing home facility before 100 days is simply because Medicare stops paying for any type of skilled care. And what we find is that most people get care in their homes by an informal caregiver who receives no compensation. Okay, sounds great, but really what that does is impact future generations. If my stepmother had to, if she could have taken care of my father, she didn't have the ability to take care of my father. If she could have taken care of him, it would have meant she would have had to quit work. It would have greatly impacted her living standard going forward. Some people we see that I work with, that they used to be educators. They had to stop teaching early to take care of a family member, those type of things. And for women, it's almost $300,000+ that you may be stunting your financial income to your family, but also thinking about your pension, cutting your pension short, those type of things. So it's really important to understand long-term care and recovery care and care of ourselves or our parents not only impacts us, it impacts family members and generations up and down the spectrum that way. So I hope you understand from that perspective. So here's where we find ourselves today. We find a lot of folks say, well, I'm too old. The good news is there are plans available up to age 89. Some people say, well, I have health issues or I can't qualify for long-term care. Several of the options that we have that are WREA endorsed that we've mentioned in here have less restrictive qualifications, meaning that if you even have a family history or something like that, or you've had health issues in the past, you may not be able to qualify for long-term care, but there are other like home health care, recovery care, things like that that you qualify for as well. And then, as many of you have stated, I've got a long-term care policy, but my premiums keep climbing. Please, 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 and I want one thing to be very clear on this call, do not cancel anything that you have. Please let MJ and her team review that, simply because there are so many options that you may have out there. There are some options that you may have, even if you decide to cancel it because you can't afford it, you may have some non-forfeiture rider provisions in there that still give you coverage. You just don't want to throw that policy away. There's some things that you may have some options out there. So please take advantage of that. MJ talks specifically about the lady, the client, the WREA member that had her fall here at church not too long ago and hurt her elbow and her head. Knee replacement surgeries, shoulder replacement, hip replacement, things that are short-term periods. There are short-term care recovery care plans, and that you can get $15,000 in lump sum money to help defray those expenses, to have that home health aid come in. So some of these things give you total control over how you're taken care of, and the different ways that you're prepared for, and the different ways that you're cared for as well. And again, we talk about this all the time. How you pay for extended care is up to you. You can pull it out of your personal savings. You can ask friends or family to move in and provide care with you at their expense. We've talked about the Medicaid program. We're going to briefly address that in a moment because it's really not an option for anyone who's receiving a pension, and I'll share with you why. Or you can have some form of extended care coverage where you're paying a small amount to make sure that you've got a much larger pool of money to take care of you and you don't have to worry about your care. So let's talk about Medicaid. And we just briefly touched on it in Long-Term Care 101, but I want to go in just a little bit deeper here because I get a lot of questions on Medicaid, because you always hear about it, but you never really know somebody who went on Medicaid. Medicaid is an extremely difficult plan to qualify for. It is truly for someone who has issues that may cause them problems from a financial standpoint. They are truly destitute and poverty ridden. I've given this presentation across the country. It shows Missouri there. Wisconsin is very similar. You have to pay down all of your assets to qualify to meet the poverty guidelines. And because you have a pension, you usually won't qualify because you're already receiving more than what the poverty guidelines are. If you do find a way to give your pension to somebody else and you don't have any control over it and all that type of stuff, Medicaid has a 5-year look back period. And that causes problems as well, because oftentimes they say, well, you've tried to hide assets and you didn't do it long enough ago, things like that. So Medicaid is very difficult to qualify for. They come back and recoup your assets after you pass away. So it is a challenge there. There are some other unique ways to pay for your long-term care. And I want to share with you these because you may already have these available to you. You may want to take advantage of what you've got, but I just want to show, because some people ask, I don't know if I can afford it. I can't qualify. What do I do? There are some life insurance policies that you may have that have a provision inside of them that allow you to accelerate a portion of your face amount to be used for long-term care. To give you an example, you may have a $200,000 life insurance policy. Inside that policy says that if you are terminally ill, meaning you have less than 12 months to live, or you have a long-term care need, you can get up to 50% of your policy to use towards that care. So you'd have $100,000 access to you right away. Now, for the life insurance company, it doesn't matter because they're already going to pay out $200,000 one way or the other if you pass away or whatever. So you can take that first $100,000, use it for your care, and then when you pass away, the $100,000 goes to your beneficiaries. Usually this provision is free inside of a life insurance policy. So double check that, have MJ review that for you. And 2, make sure that you understand that it probably just covers a nursing home. It may not cover any home health coverage. So that's a reason why you want to have MJ review that with you as well, our team, to make sure that you understand. But that's a provision that's out there in most life insurance policies that are not group insurance policies, that are not, $25,000 from the school or something like that, an individual policy that you own. We also have available a WREA endorsed tax deferred asset protection plan. I'm going to show you in a moment, that allows some of your money to go towards long-term care without penalty. Or if you're already taking money out on a periodic schedule, it can double that payment if you qualify. It's a really neat way, and we'll talk about in a moment how we've done that. Both of those are kind of strategies if you've got health issues in your family, maybe like my father's situation, my family with dementia in the background, or maybe you're concerned that I can't afford my long-term care policy anymore, but I don't want to not have long-term care coverage there. Then we've had many members tell us, hey, I'm starting to use my required minimum distribution money that I have to take out of my 403B plans or my IRAs. I'll earmark that towards my long-term care, because there are some tax advantages that you can use that money for. Again, I encourage you to consult with a tax professional, but your RMD sometimes can avoid some of the tax, or you get a tax credit for purchasing long-term care by using your RMD money. If you have a health savings account, you may have had it through the school, you may have had it through your spouse's place of employment, you can use health savings account money, which is pre-tax money, to use for long-term care premium and never have to pay tax on that money. So it's another way that the government's saying, we think you need long-term care, but we don't want you to have to pay taxes for what you're paying for that premium. Health savings accounts give you that advantage that way. And then some people think, well, I just don't know if I'm ever going to need it, or I can't qualify for it. Another way that I've seen individuals pay for long-term care, be it in the home, be it in a nursing home, is if they have a large lump sum cancer, heart attack, or stroke policy, and use that funding in that policy to pay for their care. Because stroke and heart attack are two of the top reasons why people go into nursing care or need long-term care. And so this is a way that you can pay for that as well. Now, I want to touch back on that WREA endorsed tax deferred asset protection plan. This has no underwriting. So if you've got medical history, if you've got family medical history that wouldn't qualify you for any type of long-term care plan, or you've had, dementia, or you've have some, diagnosis of early onset dementia, things like that, there is no underwriting qualification for this plan. It allows you to take a lump sum of money, put it into a plan that if the stock market goes up, you get gains off of that. If it drops, you don't lose a dime. You don't have to worry about losing any money whatsoever out there. But why I have the plan is because of the long-term care benefits. That if I need to, or my wife needs to go into a long-term care facility, I need care, I can pull money out without penalty. Or if I start to take out, say, X number of $2,000 a month, whenever I reach age 65 or 70, whatever age I want to start taking it out, and I do have a long-term care need, it will automatically double my payment. Now, this is something you can't call the pension board and say, hey, I need long-term care, double my payment. So this is a plan that you can do that. So MJ and her team can help you out on that. It is something that we're proud to offer. Many, many WREA members have taken advantage of this because it protects their savings. But if they need, just in case, any type of long-term care, it does the same thing for them as well and takes care of them. So if you've got questions, I want to open it up now. I'm going to stop recording. Feel free to drop them into chat, put them into Q&A if you want to, or you can simply hold up your hand on the reaction bar, and we're going to answer those questions for you. So let me stop recording.